how Singapore wrestled with marriages, fertility, and talent. On the evening of August 14, 1983, Singapore's leader, Kuan Yew, sparked a national and global uproar with his annual National Day rally address, known as the Great Marriage Debate. He sought to advise Singaporeans on their romantic partnerships, to address a looming but perilous talent decline and human capital issue in Singapore. Many women and parents were outraged by his perceived elitist and intrusive remarks on family planning and marriage, as well as his suggestion that educated men should marry educated women to produce exceptionally gifted children. How did he not anticipate the backlash from the culturally conservative Asian community, comprising Chinese, Malays, and Indians, which would cost him political capital? What triggered this impending talent shortage crisis that only he and a few others seemed to recognize? How would Singapore ultimately navigate the delicate balance between nurturing talent, attracting skilled workers, and respecting the personal relationships and reproductive choices of its citizens? Let us continue on this fascinating journey together. Background and internal factors contributing to marital and talent acquisition challenges in early Singapore. It is essential to acknowledge that Singapore's demographics comprise three primary ethnic Asian groups. The Chinese, largely descendants of agricultural laborers from southern China, were brought in as indentured workers to undertake physically demanding tasks. Early Indian immigrants, including laborers, merchants, and clerks, arrived to work on rubber estates, infrastructure projects, and in commerce. The Sindhi merchants and Hindu Brahmins, particularly their priests, were notable exceptions. Malays exhibited artistic prowess rather than scientific aptitude. Beyond labor opportunities, education played a pivotal role in shaping Singapore's talent pool. Under British colonial rule, Singapore emerged as a regional education hub, boasting esteemed institutions like Raffles College and King Edward VII Medical College, which later merged to form the University of Malaya in Singapore. Notably, Singapore was home to some of the region's premier Chinese schools, including Nanyang University, which taught in Chinese. In the region, influential figures like Kuan Yew prioritized high-caliber individuals in their administration, whereas others, such as Pol Pot in Cambodia and Tun Razak in Malaysia, did not consider it crucial. The government initiative introduced in the 1960s, dubbed Stop at 2, might have triggered Singapore's early talent shortage in the 1980s. This family planning strategy aimed to curb rapid population growth and alleviate unemployment and educational pressures. Although it addressed these concerns, it created a new issue where highly educated women became less motivated to marry, have children, or if they did, had fewer than 2 children on average. External factors and the Western exodus of talent. Meanwhile, Singapore's concerns about human capital were exacerbated when Western nations revised their immigration policies towards Asia. In the 1960s, during the Vietnam War, the United States altered its stance, moving away from a century-long restriction on Asian immigrants. Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, with their modest populations, soon followed suit. By shifting from exclusion to admission of highly qualified Asians, these countries tapped into a vast talent reservoir. Singapore, in particular, lost a significant portion of its influx of Chinese and Indian professionals from Malaysia, who opted for Western destinations instead. Tun Razak, Malaysia's prime minister, was reportedly unperturbed, quipping to Kuan Yew in the early 1970s, "This is not brain drain, it is trouble drain, ridding Malaysia of turmoil." Singapore witnessed an exodus of 5 to 10% of its top-educated citizens to Western countries. This was particularly challenging for Singapore, as its English-educated population could easily integrate into countries like Britain and Australia, with minimal cultural and linguistic barriers. Singapore needed to find external solutions to these external challenges. The Great Marriage Controversy. Meanwhile, the political backlash of the infamous 1983 speech was that Kuan Yew's party, PAP, suffered a 12% drop in votes in the subsequent election. But what prompted him to deliver that speech? Kuan Yew had received the 1980 census data, and the statistics alarmed him. He noticed that educated women were opting out of marriage and parenthood. He inferred that this trend meant these brilliant women would not be represented in the next generation. The root cause of this phenomenon was that educated men preferred to mate down the educational ladder, culturally. About half of university graduates were women, with nearly 2/3 remaining unmarried. Only 38% of graduate men were married to fellow graduate women in 1983 Singapore. Kuan Yew then decided to shock the young men out of their outdated, harmful biases with his speech. The fallout from this address was monumental. Female graduates were outraged that he highlighted their struggles. Non-graduate women and their families were infuriated that he was discouraging graduate men from marrying them. Kuan Yew, characteristically, did not back down, instead offering additional evidence to substantiate his claims. He presented data from 1960 and 1970, which revealed that most of Singapore's top students who secured scholarships to study abroad had parents with limited education. In contrast, data from 1980 and 1990 showed that over 50% of scholarship recipients had at least one parent who was a professional or entrepreneur. He observed that this shift was driven by the expansion of education in Singapore, which became universal since the 1970s, with scholarships, grants, and study loans freely available to bright students, addressing the fertility and marriage conundrum. Following several years of contemplation, Kuan Yew came to realize that human capital is a nation's most valuable resource, particularly for a small country with limited resources and a population of merely 2 million at independence in 1965. One of the initial actions taken by the government in 1983, subsequent to Yew's address, was to reassess and modify the Stop at 2 population control policy. To tackle the issue of unmarried educated women, the Singapore government opted to provide alternatives to the traditional matchmaking process. They established a Social Development Unit, SDU, to facilitate social interactions between graduate men and women, moving away from arranged marriages. Dr. Eileen Aw, a distinguished doctor, married to a doctor and with 2 university-educated children, was appointed as the inaugural leader. Initially met with skepticism, the initiative soon found favor among women in Singapore with unmarried, educated offspring. The Social Development Unit, SDU, and Social Development Section, SDS, were formed to help Singaporeans find partners. By 1995, the SDS had 97,000 members, with 31% of couples meeting through the program getting married. To address the issue of better educated women having fewer children, Kuan Yew and Keng Swee introduced a policy in 1984, giving priority school admission to children of graduate mothers with 3 kids. However, graduate mothers protested, feeling embarrassed by the privilege. The government then replaced the policy with family income tax concessions for married women from graduate to O-level backgrounds. Addressing the brain drain, attracting and retaining global talent. Singapore tackled the foreign talent brain drain issue in the 1980s by forming 2 committees. One focused on job placement, while the other promoted social integration for emigrated Asian students and professionals from Western countries. Student counselors in foreign missions identified promising Asian students, and scholarships were offered to bright students from China, India, and the region. Although successful in attracting Chinese and Indian talent, Malay talent was less interested. Singapore also engaged in green harvesting, offering jobs to exceptional talent before graduation. By the 1990s, Singapore's systematic search for global talent led to a 3-fold increase in foreign talent inflow compared to outflow, expanding the reach of talent. Since the late 1990s, a growing trend has emerged in Singapore: Caucasian men marrying local women, especially those with higher education. Until 1999, the government allowed male citizens to bring in foreign spouses, but not female citizens. This led to many women emigrating. The policy changed in January 1999 to attract more international talent. Singapore also became more open to mixed heritage children, with one Singaporean parent and the other from a Caucasian, Japanese, or other Asian background. Conclusion: in Kuan Yew's first cabinet, Only he was born and educated in Singapore. Other members, like Keng Swee and Chin Chai, came from Malaya, while Raja hailed from Ceylon. Haven identified a challenging trend. It would still take Lee Kuan Yew several years to achieve nationwide success. He shared data on top students' parents, showing a link between parental education and children's achievement. By the late 1990s, Singaporeans accepted this idea. By 1997, 63% of graduate men married fellow graduates, up from 38% in 1982. Additionally, more graduate women were marrying non-graduates rather than staying single. Singapore continued to nurture homegrown talent and to attract foreign brain to keep its advanced and leading economy ever vibrant. How do you see Singapore today? Leave your comments in the comment section below. Thank you for watching. Please like and share this video. Kindly subscribe for more intriguing videos. Lessons Untold. Relax, review, reflect,